Hello, everybody. It's Mike. All right, so I want to continue my discussion about the connection between super empath, twin flame, covert narcissism, codependence. Why are these things all brought together? And what stimulated this was a comment that was left on the channel. So I appreciate the comments. Bear in mind, if you leave a comment on my channel, there's a good chance I may talk about it, may use it in a video. And the reason I do that isn't to point anybody out. It's just that when somebody leaves a comment, they're usually going to be reflecting what other people are thinking as well. And I think it's really important to discuss these things, to look at them. I'm only interested in healing. I'm only interested in being happy. It's the only thing I care about. And so whatever it is that practically in my life brings me happiness, peace, and recovery, that's what I do. So when, if you're like me, you've probably spent a lot of time justifying really unpleasant, unhealthy experiences. And you don't know any better. So you just find ways to justify it, to explain it, but it never really ends up bringing happiness or peace. And I shared in the last video, this is part 2. In part 1, I played somebody who was talking about being a super empath and going supernova. Again, when I hear the word super empath, for me, super empath means somebody, just when I hear that phrase, it sounds like somebody who has more empathy than others, meaning they're more loving, they're more kind, they're more able to love unconditionally. But when I hear super empaths talk about themselves, I don't hear that. I hear narcissism. So before we go any further, right, let's take a look at what it is that primes you to end up in these destructive relationships with a narcissist, relationships with a borderline. And we could spend all day, as I do in many of my other videos, psychoanalyzing the borderline or the narcissist and what's wrong with them and what they do and how they gaslight you and how they horrifically destroy your life. And I'm not denying any of that. But what do you want? Do you want to heal? Do you want to feel better? That's really what I care about. So for me, in order to understand that, instead of looking at the other person, once I've acknowledged that the other person is a borderline or whatever it is, they're a borderline or they're a narcissist, once you've come out of the fog of the confusion and the pain, and you realize that you're with somebody who has one of these mental disorders, then in order to heal, you have to deal with what it is that's keeping you there. Because the thing that I wanted to point out the last time with the super empath recording of the woman who was talking about super empath and going supernova is there was nothing in that about getting away from the person. There was nothing about healing afterwards. There was definitely nothing having to do with love. Their whole purpose of being a super empath and going supernova was to finally explode on their narcissistic partner and to destroy them. So much so that it really bothered them and it hurt them. But that's what makes them a super empath, and they're going to destroy the narcissist. And every time one of those, I've got one queued up here as well from somebody else. And on the side, on the suggested videos, you hear things like, your greatest revenge against the narcissist. Narcissist the predator, the importance of your silence, an experience with greater narcissist. And one of my favorites was, the narcissist will never forget a super empath. The super empath destroys the narcissist. The narcissist never recovers from the super empath. The narcissist will always love you. This is coming up, and it's like, why is that important? Why is the goal of all of this to destroy the narcissist, to get the narcissist to love you, to have them never be able to forget you. I mean, you can fill in the blank. It's just really codependent. There's no healing in any of it. So I wasn't gonna play this, but let's go ahead and play. Here's a doctor in the mental health field, which I was very surprised at. And this person is going to talk about the greater narcissist versus the real super empath. So let's just, I don't know, I haven't listened to it. Let's just see what she has to say.
Some symptomology that some of you display that lets me know this sounds more like borderline traits, but it would be unethical for me to just diagnose you guys on YouTube. So some of you guys, when you're speaking up, it's not that you went supernova, you just had enough, you start fighting back. Some of you are in a revenge state. Some of you are talking about, I am a super empath. That's why I'm thinking about how I'm going to get the person back. That's not being a super empath. A super empath is a very broken and hurt individual. They're almost ashamed of the fact that they are a super empath because they have problems with boundaries. They have problems with saying no. They stay in relationships too long. When people have told them not to get into it, or it's time for you to get out, they've stayed in for many years, way after everybody else knows, but they just keep having that hope. They stay, they hope, when they get in my office, a lot of times I've worked with people All
right, so at this point, I can't tell if she's doing the psychologist thing where she's not confronting people in their delusion, or if she actually believes this whole idea of super empath, supernova, etc. Let's hear some more.
Years that are super empaths. I have worked with them for almost the longest, probably 2 years and counting, where I've had super empaths in, and they are emotionally and psychologically broken. When a super empath goes supernova, a empath would do everything they possibly can to avoid just blowing up. They'll do anything to avoid that because they don't want to hurt the person that they love, which could be the narcissist.
All right, so what she's describing there, whether she's aware of it or not, I don't know, but what she's describing there is the codependent. So at this point, we need to talk about what true unconditional love is versus the codependent version of love, the codependent's version of worth, which is a transactional relationship. So I've used that before. A transactional relationship is just what it sounds like. When you go to the store and you buy your organic kombucha cola, the transaction is I give them money, and in exchange they give me my product or my service. They don't knock on my door and say, hey, I just love you so much, and I know you love drinking these sugar-free, wonderful drinks, kombucha things, here, take it. No, I have to go and buy it. But I give them something, they give me something. So my value to them is giving them money. Their value to me is giving me my product or my service. So as a kid, you've heard me say this before, as a kid, an infant, a toddler, if you're in a transactional relationship where your value, your worth, your lovability is a result of what you do for the other person. And so a very typical codependent will be the person who has to fix everybody. They have to fix mom and dad. They have to, in order to be loved and have their role in the family, their job is to make sure that everybody else is happy all the time. So what happens with transactional relationships is that the message is always getting to you, especially when you're little. And the message is that you don't have any value. You, in and of yourself, you don't have any value. I don't love you for who you are. Your only value is what you give to me, and this is objectification. We talk about objectification. Usually, we're talking about men objectifying women for sex. So they objectify women, meaning that your only value to them is what you do for them sexually. You're not seen as a person. You're only seen for your body and whatever pleasure they may get from you. That's sexual objectification. When you're a little kid, you're objectified emotionally. What you do for them. You make them feel better. You keep them from getting angry. This is objectification. So it means you don't have any value. You grow up, you become an adult, if this is how you were trained, and you still walk around with the feeling that my value comes from what I do for other people, not for who I am. And so who are the people that you're going to be attracted to? People who objectify you, who use you just for how you make them feel. The narcissist, the borderline, etc., etc. So we know about that. We could talk all day about how they objectify you and hurt you, all that. But what ends up happening is that as you continue to deny your own needs, your own wants, because you were shamed out of them as a little kid, you weren't allowed to have any negative feelings. If you started to cry, Dad said, "I'll give you something to cry about," and Mom would say, a good girl is always smiling. Don't bring any of that stuff in here. Just come in here and help me set the table and make sure your dad has his slippers. And so little girls learn in an objectification scenario. They learn that their value comes from what they do, how they serve others. They take that into life. And this is what she's saying here. She's going to say something along the lines of the super empath loves everybody and only wants to give to everybody and make everybody happy. But the problem with that is that that's going to create rage. So the little kid, even the little kid, if they are objectified, if they are in a transactional relationship with their family, they're going to get rageful. But every time the rage comes to the surface, then they're shamed out of it, or it's beaten out of them, or guilted out of them, or something. So what ends up happening in adult life is that they blow up. After giving and giving and giving and giving, it gets, as she's going to say, they're broken and they're hurt, and they don't have any boundaries. And then what happens is they blow up. And people are calling this going supernova. And then when you hear about the super empath going supernova, you hear about how that's the worst thing. I mean, I'm the worst thing that ever happened to a narcissist because I'm going to go supernova on them. And then they have their psychopathy. They become psychopathic. They have no empathy, whatever. Again, you call yourself a super empath, but the way you know somebody's a super empath is that eventually they're going to explode, go supernova, and become psychopathic. And somehow that's a good thing? When the whole idea is that they chased down these narcissists and borderlines and or attracted the narcissist and the borderline so that they would finally have an excuse to explode over the rage that they've never felt. It doesn't solve the problem because then you get in the rabbit cage. Now she's going to talk about they don't want to get upset because they hate the idea of hurting the one that they love. What that is that when you were a kid, if you got angry, if you blew up, if you had a temper tantrum, because you weren't being loved, you needed the attention and you weren't getting loved, and you blew up, then you were shamed. So you learned to feel guilty for your rage. So I don't know what she's talking about here. She's supposedly a counselor. She's talking about counseling people in her office. But, I can't tell if she's co-signing this or if she's just using that and she's going to get to something. But what I'm hearing here is that, she's co-signing this idea that these codependents who are also narcissistic, they're not ever dealing with the rage and they're not dealing with what they really want. Because the other thing is, if you're a super empath, you're only here for other people. You only love other people, which means you don't have any needs, you don't have any vulnerability, which is, why again Superman is the ultimate, one expression of the ultimate super empath. He has no needs, he's completely invulnerable, and nothing ever bothers him, but he goes around saving and helping everybody. And yet nobody loves him for who he is. They love him for what he does. And that's going to make people, completely flip out at some point. And then they become the supernova, right? All right, so let's listen and see what else she has to say about being a supernova.
they will do anything to avoid, because that is a lot of energy, and you keep messing with that. And see, the thing about it is like on the narcissist side, you got to remember that the narcissist watches everything you do. They listen to you, they mirror you. They don't build relationships or rapport. What they're doing is they're gathering information. Somebody said they interrogate, so they gather information that they can use against you and hold it against you. A super empath is very intuitive. They watch everything. They don't gather information for the purpose of paying you back. They're just very intuitive. They watch how you act. They watch your body language. They watch what you do. They watch your habits. If they do certain things and you respond to them a certain way, they'll stop doing certain things. They'll pull back, but they'll watch. And once a super empath in their mind, instead of blowing up on you and exploding, because that is the death of you, they prefer to back out of the situation, tend to explode. It takes a lot of energy. They feel guilty about what they've done. And I think two people on here explained it beautifully. But it takes a lot of energy after they've gone supernova to protect themselves, not to fight back. They don't go supernova to fight back. That's not what happens. They literally go supernova to protect themselves. It is a self-preservation mechanism when they have reached their end, and that narcissist won't leave them alone. But what they don't realize, what the great narcissist or the narcissist doesn't understand, is that the same way that they were watching you and paying attention, the super empath was too. The difference between the super empath and the narcissist is the fact that they don't say anything. So the narcissist, in their arrogance and in their grandiosity, assumes that you're stupid. But
all right, so I have to say, the only thing she's doing here is she is saying that the narcissist is an overt narcissist and the super empath is a secondary psychopath. She says the only difference. First, she says the narcissist watches you and learns about you so that they can, get into your vulnerabilities and get to know you and use it against you, et cetera, et cetera. We already know that. That's what a narcissist does. And then she goes on to say that the super empath does that also. And then she sort of catches herself and she says, but they don't do it for the same reason. A super empath will watch what you do and will gauge what they do and what they don't do based on your reaction. And then, then they're going to turn around and use it against you. But the difference is, according to her, when they go supernova, meaning they have they get rageful and they explode. And who knows what happens. I mean, it sounds like a really awful experience. The way it's described is the last thing you want, if you're a narcissist, is to be around the super empath when they go supernova, because the feeling is that they are the most powerful beings in the universe. And we're just holding back because we love people and we don't want to explode. But when we do, we explode more than you can possibly imagine. And all that she's done is described a secondary or covert narcissist. And that even falls the idea of the covert narcissist. She says the narcissist is stupid. They don't know because they, in their arrogance, don't realize that you're watching everything that they do and you're holding back and you're choosing not to act. You're going to wait. So somehow the person who's waiting in the shadows, waiting to go supernova, because, as they say, this narcissist won't leave them alone, which, why you can't just get out of the relationship, I don't know. Why you have to be in a relationship where you're with somebody that won't leave you alone. I mean, why that's even acceptable. I don't hear anything, this thing about the super empath and the supernova, and it's this wonderful thing, but there's this basic elephant in the room, which is, well, what are you doing with the narcissist anyway? Now, I understand. I'd be okay if you say, yeah, I'm addicted to them. And I'm addicted to the drama and all that. Then I'm going to say, okay, I get why you're still there. But if you're this all-powerful super empath that has the ability to go supernova and use your empathic abilities to destroy people, again, that sounds exactly like a narcissist. According to her, the only difference is that the narcissist, in their hubris, in their egomania, doesn't have the ability to realize that you are taking notes on them all the time. and you're going to use that against you when the time comes and when you've pushed me. So, the secondary psychopath, what really a covert narcissist is a supernova, is a super empath. The secondary psychopath is a professional victim. Their entire life is defined by being a victim. It's where they get all of their power from. So I'm pointing this out, again, not to point any fingers, but just to say, look, if you've been involved with a borderline, if you've been involved with a narcissist, and it's been for a long period of time, and you've been hurt over and over and over again, the answer to the question of why are you still there means that you have narcissistic traits. I don't know if you're a full-blown secondary psychopath or not. And I'm talking about myself here. There's narcissism, there's selfishness involved. The way to heal is to acknowledge your selfishness. Right? So let's continue to hear some more, what she has to say.
Don't realize, just like one of the subscribers says, they pay attention to everything. They have so much information gathered on that narcissist that if push come to shove where they have to defend themselves, they much rather walk out cordial. Let's do this divorce. Let's do this cordial. Let me do it the right way, because that is the heart of the empath. For them to go supernova, it is totally out of character for them. That is totally out of character. They feel guilty. They feel horrible after they do it. But once they set their mind to staying away from the person, they much rather get out and discard than to blow up and do the same thing that the narcissist is doing.
Good, you hear that? So again, she's trying to make the distinction between a healthy psychopathic episode and an unhealthy. And what I just heard was the description of a borderline. So again, I put a lot of time and effort into helping people understand that borderlines, if we're talking about true borderline personality disorder, my experience is that they don't want to discard you. They don't want to hurt you. That the part of them that is love bombing you really does love you. They really mean it. But they get afraid, and their experience is exactly the way she's describing. That because what happens, if you've been with a borderline, you know that what happens is they turn you into a narcissist. They'll start talking to you like you are a narcissist abuser. Mine did. All I had to do was just say one or two words, and the next thing I know, she's unloading on me about how I've been planning this out, and I've been planning out her demise. So in her mind, I've become a narcissist. I'm somebody who's evil, and I have no love in me, and all that. And she exploded. She went supernova. So the difference between a borderline and a covert super empath narcissist is that the super empath actually goes and looks for somebody to abuse them so that they can point to and say, look, I put up with this abuse for X amount of time, and now I'm going to go supernova on you. And so whereas the borderline knows that they've blown up, and many times will realize that it was, that it didn't mean anything. It came out of nowhere, and they feel guilty. She's talking about the same thing. Let's listen to it again. Now imagine this is a borderline talking about, discarding the other person. Bear in mind again, when the borderline discards you, it's because they believe that you are out to destroy them.
They have so much information gathered on that narcissist that if push come to shove where they have to defend themselves, they much rather walk out cordial. Let's do this divorce. Let's do this cordial. Let me do it the right way, because that is the heart of the empath. For them to go supernova, it is totally out of character for them. That is totally out of character. They feel guilty. They feel horrible after they do it. But once they set their mind to staying away from the person, they much rather get out and discard than to blow up and do the same thing that the narcissist is doing. They don't do it with the thought of, I'm going to be narcissistic. Those traits come out because when those traits just come out. But they've watched everything, and if they have to use it for the purpose of protecting themselves, they will use what they know about the narcissist to protect themselves, to keep them away from them. But a super empath does not purposely go supernova. It is a method of defending themselves. It is a defense mechanism.
She's just simply describing a borderline splitting. It's a different mechanism. So it's a different expression of the same thing. See the difference? The borderline love bombs you. You love them back. They get afraid. They flip out. They become delusional, and they start to imagine that you've said and done things which you haven't said and done. But in their mind, you're a narcissist. You are out to destroy them. They don't want to, but they can't help themselves. It is a defense mechanism. They have to push you away because you're a threat. And then they regret it. It's the last thing that they want. They feel horrible, etc., etc. She's just described that. Except the only difference, if I believe the way she's talking about it, is that the supernova actually has, on paper, yes, I'm with a narcissist who is continuing to abuse me and harm me, and I've been taking it for years and years. Now, this is the same thing that I hear from people who have been with borderlines for a long time. They have all of this list of all of the stuff they've put up with for years and years and years and years. And then they come onto my channel, and then they leave comments of, you're being too kind to them. They need to be held accountable for what they've done. So, we're just on a sliding scale here. On one side, we have the pathological, psychopathic narcissist. And then on the other end of the scale, we've got the codependent. In between, you have the borderline. As I've said, the borderline is a failed narcissist, and the codependent is a failed borderline. But they all do the same thing. And so the healing comes in looking at what you want. Now, everything that she's described about the super empath is somebody who does not have any desires of their own. The only time that they express any desire is when their life is on the line after they've been abused beyond their ability to take it. But there's no honesty in what I want is to be loved, because that has been smashed out of you, as a little kid. And so let's go look at some comments. Again, if you leave comments on my channel, I might use them. I might use them to talk about, to start a discussion about. So this was again in response to BPD, the super empath saves the borderline. Why are empaths drawn to, narcissists? And this person says, let's see, this person had a lot to say about this one video over and over. She says, a codependent empath fixes their issues and wounds to become a super empath to help guide and heal others, but must always make time for themselves. So basically, she's saying, if we go over what I just heard the doctor say, a super empath is a covert narcissist. A super empath is a secondary psychopath. So she's saying that a codependent becomes a secondary psychopath. Now, what you'll find with all of this, the narcissist, the borderline, and the codependent, is this feeling of superiority. That is the mask, because vulnerability is what everybody's trying to run away from. The codependent and the super empath use their vulnerability in order to get enmeshed with a narcissistic person so that they can justify the pain that they go through. That's what this is all about. Again, there's no love here. That's my question. My question to anybody who wants to talk about, I'm a super empath, I'm a this, my question to them is, where's the love? Aren't relationships about love, being loved and loving? So that's what I hear in this now. A codependent empath fixes their issues and wounds. So it doesn't say they go and get help. They go and get counseling. They go, work the 12 steps. This is just somebody, I'm assuming based on this, they fix themselves. This is a very codependent thing to do. Because, in a healthy childhood, when you skin your knee, you go to mommy. Mommy picks you up and kisses your knee and holds you and tells you it's okay. But if your mommy didn't do that, fix your boo-boos, then you have to go fix yourself. So the codependent empath fixes their issues and wounds to become a super empath, which means now nobody's going to harm me. I'm now a super being. And then I'm going to now look down on everybody else. And now I'm here to help guide and heal others. It wasn't, I fix my issues and my wounds so that I can learn to love and be loved. I fix my issues and wounds to become a super invulnerable empath to help guide and heal others. Right. So I asked how exactly they fix themselves. I got no answer. She responds again, same video, and she says, also, the narcissist or BPD will trigger you to release your inner child pain to step into your greatest version of yourself. And again, I think that's true with anything in life. Every situation in life, positive or negative, is an opportunity to step into your greatest self. You don't need some intense thing to give yourself the right to do that. But I mean, everything, if we get spiritual about it, everything has its purpose. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with somebody saying, yeah, I had this horrible experience, a horrible relationship, and from that I learned and I grew. I'm okay with that. But there's now this magical thinking that says, because of my supremacy, because of my superiority, the universe is going to have me go through this hell so that I'll learn how to become perfect and invulnerable and superior to others as I fly around with my cape rescuing little kids. So I asked, is it necessary for a person to have the narcissist in order to grow? Right? And she responds, and of course, to the first question, so the narc's role is to help you become your best self. I don't know if she even read the rest of it. She says, yes, because you attracted the narc because of your own inner core wounds, but your higher self, guides and angels will allow this to happen. So it's happening to you. And those who are helping you are allowing it to happen. In other words, you had no responsibility. You did not seek out somebody who was psychopathic in order to relive your childhood issues so you could try and fix them. It happened to you. It was allowed to happen. You're just walking down the street and the universe allows these people into your life. So I say, so is the narc indispensable to this process, or can it be done without the narc? She says, it's divinely guided. I say, you're not answering my questions. I get that it's divinely guided. I'm asking you if you need to have this awakening with the narc, or can you do it without them? No answer. Next one, next comment, she says, unconditional love is you love them without any conditions and expectations. I know this because my twin soul came into my life to mirror me, my inner child issues, which I have now been working on to heal myself. So there's my first, not everybody is able to express themselves, coherently and well. Everybody's, I go off on tangents all the time, so I can understand that, but it's really hard to nail her down on anything. She's just really squishy. Wherever I go, she's like Mercury, squishes and comes up somewhere else. And so I'm asking direct questions that I'm not getting an answer to. And she says, unconditional love is when you love them without any conditions and expectations. So this is very codependent. Codependents pride themselves on loving the borderline, loving the narcissist without any expectations, and that is narcissistic. It's that firewall of perfection, which the narcissist shows. The overt narcissist is perfect, they can do no wrong, everybody loves them, but that's hiding incredible insecurity and feeling of the opposite. So here the codependent is loving unconditionally, without conditions and expectations. And that is a firewall, because no human has that ability, which is why the super empath is a super empath. They're beyond human. They're no longer human. They've now morphed into a super being, and they don't have any needs. That was the programming when you were a little kid. You weren't allowed to have any needs or any feelings because your job was transactional. You were there to take care of other people and make them feel a certain way and do things for them. And if you didn't have any value. So as adults, the super empath is just the incredibly untreated codependent who has the narcissistic firewall of superiority and invulnerability. I have no needs. And she says, she makes this claim about what unconditional love is, and then she says, I know this because my twin soul came into my life to mirror me. Now, do you know what a twin flame is? If you look back on the picture here, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But, twin flames, all this, it's all connected. You'll all hear these same people, if they have no recovery, if they haven't been into any therapy or any self-examination or 12 steps, they're going to use these same terms. and I understand it, they're trying to explain a very painful, crazy, horrifically painful life. So the way to do that is to spiritualize it, is to use magical thinking. As you know, borderlines do this all the time. They use magical thinking about everything. So the super empath uses magical thinking and has magical superpowers and has no needs and doesn't need anything from anybody. But she says she's talking about, here we go. So she's talking about how she knows that she loves people unconditionally, and why this is connected, I don't know, because her twin flame came into her life. Now I use this picture here for a reason, because the twin flame scenario is this. The twin flame is your other half. Again, listen for the narcissism. The twin flame is your other half. The twin flame soul is a soul that is of a higher density than everybody else, is of a higher vibration than everybody else. And so in order to function in three-dimensional reality, then God split this one giant super soul into two beings, one masculine and one feminine. And so the whole point of the twin flame experience is to go through the world looking for your other half. And that other half will mirror you. And you see this now, the twin flame, they're burning each other. They're, when they face each other, it's like they're their own kryptonite. They're destroying each other. So that doesn't look very pleasant unless you read about it and you find out the twin flame is the person you can't be without, that from the moment you meet them, you know that they're your perfect self. And that's the idea. They're you. They're not a separate person. They're you. And the twin flame relationship is defined by what we would consider to be narcissistic codependent relationship. There's always the runner and the chaser, and there is the masculine and the feminine, and the masculine can't handle the intimacy, so they take off running, and then the feminine has to sit there after having been discarded, and their job is to go into the fifth dimension and perfect themselves in the fifth dimension, so that then the masculine part of them in the 3D will come back to them. And the masculine is always seen as being less spiritual, less advanced. So again, there's this superiority. And you only hear people talking about twin flames if they identify as the feminine aspect, the spiritual, the above it all, right? And so the relationship, which is the ultimate relationship, the reunification of the self, that you live to be reunited with your other self. It's the most important thing. You yearn for it. This has to be done on the fifth dimension, which is out of this realm, which means that people basically get into a dysfunctional relationship. They get hurt and discarded, but they're still ruminating over the other person, but they start talking about, no, it's my other self, and so I'm gonna ruminate on them. I'm gonna meditate on how to improve myself, and I'm always gonna love them unconditionally, even though they lie and cheat. You'll hear people on any of these, just go to any YouTube video about twin flames, and you'll see in the comments, read the comments, my twin flame just left me, my twin flame married a karmic and has kids. So we're talking about somebody who has decided the other person is my other half, and they've married somebody else and they have kids, but I'm waiting. At some point, they're going to wake up to who they are, and they're going to leave their karmic relationship with their kids, and they'll come be with me. No awareness that, hey, they're married to somebody else. It's time to move on. Total, utter, complete, just codependence to the nth degree. So I asked some questions about, tell me about the twin flame. And anyway, so she says, empaths also struggle because they have to separate their emotions from the emotions of the other person. So as you know, that's just another description of a codependent. A codependent doesn't acknowledge their own feelings. That's why they go supernova. Does it make sense that if an empath is somebody who acknowledges other people's feelings and can't tell their feelings apart from other people, that's something that's supposedly their super strength. Well, that assumes that they don't have any feelings of their own. But if it's actually a codependent dysfunction where you suppress all of your thoughts, feelings, and desires in favor of somebody else, you mirror them. Again, that's what narcissists do. They mirror other people so that they can get them to love them. You're doing that as well. You just all about the other person and what they want and how to please them. But you say, I'm an empath. I'm just here to unconditionally love you, until you finally go supernova and you explode on them. She goes on to say, I've recently walked away from a karmic relationship. So the difference between a karmic relationship and a twin flame is that the twin flame is your other self. This is who you're going to be with for the rest of your existence. But a karmic, that's somebody you get together with to work on your karmic issues so you can be better equipped to be with who? Your twin flame. What do borderlines do? Borderlines have multiple relationships around them all the time. So that when whoever they're with, when they split on them, they can run to the other person. And there's no doubt in my mind they use that same kind of talk. Oh, I was with that other person and it was, it didn't work out, but now I realize you're the one for me. Again, this stuff could all be, it's narcissism. The point I'm trying to make is that you got involved with your borderline out of your narcissism, your need to be reflected, your childish need, your infantile need to have mommy reflect you without any desire for herself. She just reflects you back to yourself. As mothers sit there and they coo with their kids and repeat. The kid makes a noise, they make a noise back. Oh, blah, blah, ah, blah, blah, ah, blah, blah, ah, blah, blah. That's mirroring, so that the infant starts to understand that they exist, that they have their own experience. If you didn't get that, then you're going to look for a twin flame. You're going to look for somebody who is you. They're not another person with their own thoughts, feelings, and desires and destiny. They're your other half, and your job is to finally get them back. And you'll chase after them or wait patiently for years while they marry other people, and you'll wait for them to come back. And then you'll fix yourself on the fifth dimension instead of being here now. And anybody else who comes along who isn't your twin flame is just a karmic, and so you'll use them so that you can learn and grow, so that you can be better off for the abusive person that doesn't want you. Imagine those karmics, the people who are the karmic relationship. How do they feel about falling in love with you and you decide they're not good enough and you discard them because they're not your twin soul? Your twin flame. See what I'm getting at? The way to heal any of it, whether you're narcissist, borderline, or just garden variety codependent, is to stop focusing on the other person and focus on your own narcissism. Your rage. Instead of waiting to explode, you do that fourth step in the 12 steps of CODA, CODA.org. You go there and work those 12 steps. And that fourth step, you get to look at your resentments. You can go supernova without having to blow up on somebody else. And then you get to learn to have your feelings. You get to learn to have your anger, your pain, your rage, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. Like, she says here, they feel guilty. They hate themselves afterwards. That's just shame. They're shame. That's them going back to beating themselves up for having their own feelings. And also the acknowledgement that they know that they were just really abusive to somebody. When you blow up on somebody, it's abusive. And anyway, so I asked the question, where does the actual cooperative love relationship come in without the drama? Both of these relationships, the twin flame and the karmic, both sound difficult. Can't we just love and be loved by someone? She says, the whole idea with karmic connections is to get you ready to meet your twin flame, which is in the fifth dimension. All right, so none of this happens in the real world. Magical thinking. So she basically just says that she has a transactional relationship with these other people whom she has determined is not her twin flame. Let's read it again. The whole idea with karmic connections is to get you ready to meet your twin flame. So in other words, these people are just here for you to use. To you use whatever you learn from the karmic connection so that you can then make yourself better for the person who won't ever love you, the person who's already discarded you and has moved on and has married somebody else. So do you see what I mean? That, there's no, no, that's my twin flame, that's the only one, and you're just karmic. I mean, we're not going anywhere. I'm just gonna, so the other, you get a codependent who falls in love with you in your secondary psychopathy, and then you discard them in favor of the person that's never gonna love you, which is exactly what the borderline does. Let's see. To meet your twin flame, which is in the fifth dimension, is your actual other part of your soul, and for you are your own twin flame, if that makes sense. So the whole idea of twin flames and karmics is to love yourself unconditionally. So in other words, to have a narcissistic experience of yourself. And relationships you have to drop the narcissism in order to have a relationship. You have to be willing to see people for who they are, to love them in their imperfections, and to let them love you in their imperfect way. So she's not even willing to do that. We're talking about somebody who's completely put on the mask of invulnerability and superiority. She goes on to say, what else? Something else somewhere. Okay, is this it? At some point, she says that she realizes that she is an earth angel, that all of the pain that she went through with she's on my channel, talking about borderlines. So this whole awakening is for her to realize that she's not human, that she's an angel. And what are angels? Angels just love others and they don't have any needs. So it's just another way of being a super empath, of being superior to everybody else and not having any vulnerabilities. Which is, the point is the desire to run away from the pain, to use magical thinking to make yourself more than human in order to avoid being hurt. You end up hurting a hell of a lot of people. So while this person says she is an earth angel and she's only here for to help other people, I don't know, but it sounds like she's discarded more than a few karmics in order to heal herself. Now, it could just be that she just keeps getting attracted to, narcissists and others, and so she'll just, there's one that's true and the others are karmic. But even so, the whole super empath thing is you use what she says. I mean, the universe allows this to happen to you so you can heal yourself. And the whole thing is saying that you can't heal yourself on your own. And that's what I'm trying to say. And so again, the three things that I tell you to do, that I've done, I don't tell you to do anything. 3 things that I suggest doing, which is in the super empath, when you join at the super empath level, I talk about the 3 things. I talk about therapy. I talk about working the 12 steps in Codependents Anonymous, CODA.org, especially that 4th step. And then to have a daily spiritual practice. Being a psychic and an empath and doing readings for people is just another way of not, of being superior to everybody. So you'll find a lot of these people are psychics, and they're, I got nothing against people who do that. Any kind of, anybody can be a helper and a therapist and a counselor in their own way. So there's plenty of people out there who do readings and are psychics and Reiki and all that, and they're helpful. But except when you don't do anything for yourself. And then it's just a way to stay superior and be above it all and not have your own feelings and go supernova on people and destroy people and then feel guilty and then spiritualize it by saying, yes, I'm a super empath. All right, so I think I've talked myself through that. Again, I recommend clicking the join button here at the super empath level. You can also check out the 90-day challenge, which is something that goes hand in hand with that, which is how to find your true soul desire and to follow that. And so the bottom line is being willing to look at yourself. You may not know how to do that without feeling guilty and shaming yourself, which is why therapy, 12 steps, and meditation are important. And I recommend finding a therapist who doesn't co-sign this whole super empath, supernova thing. I mean, just because somebody got a degree, it doesn't mean that they've done any work on themselves. So there's plenty of psychologists out there who, need to do the work themselves. But my experience has been when you find a good therapist, it's really important to be willing to take a look at yourself, look at your desires. Stop saying that you love people unconditionally. Stop saying that. It's just not human. Humans don't do that. Humans want something for the love that they give, and they deserve to be loved in return. If you want to be a super loving person, that's great, but don't get rid of the reality that you love people so that they will love you back. And then you'll find out really quick, because when somebody doesn't love you back, you go, wow, I'm in this for, to be loved, and you're not loving me, so I'm out of here. That's what a healthy person does. A healthy person doesn't stay and stay in a bad relationship that the universe allows to happen so that you can become a superhuman. Again, we see this in movies, right? When you see movies about, people who become serial killers, their fantasy is that they're superior to everybody. And when they're going on their rampage and killing, it's that they're, the red dragon. You remember from that movie? I mean, can't we see that in ourselves? My experience with codependents is that their anger is more explosive than anybody. Just because they spend 90% of their time loving people unconditionally, not wanting anything, when that 10% of the time when they blow up, they're more destructive and harmful and psychopathic than anybody. So let's just acknowledge that. We're all in this thing together. Narcissist, borderline, codependent, we all got this narcissistic issue where we're looking for somebody to mirror us, to validate us, to meet us at that need that we needed when we were an infant. And we're only going to be able to do that for ourselves if we do the work, and then we'll be able to be there for somebody else in their narcissism. In the healthy, not the big narcissism, but the little narcissism. All right, I'm starting to babble, so I'm going to shut up. All right, that's it. I will see you guys when I see you.